Okay, welcome back everyone, Zaf here to yet another juicy solo levelized video. For today's topic, we have an upgraded weapon tier list because we have a new addition and some buffs we have to cover. So let me cover that with you. Very important, you know what weapons are best. And let me tell you right now, my results may be different from what you're thinking, so do stay tuned. You might have varying opinions on what I choose. And also, I did want to mention it's Thanksgiving in Canada, so I wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who is watching, everyone who is subscribed, and everyone who is supporting me. It means so much you do not even know, so just thank you, all I wanted to say. I really appreciate every single one of you. But speaking of appreciate, oh my, what are the devs doing? What is this hunter? This right here is the next hunter coming into the game? How am I supposed to play? Look at that. Look at her. Anyways, let's go back to the tier list because this is insane. This is the next Z tier unit, I'm telling you. What is going on? But seriously, thank you everyone who has been subscribing. Look at that number. Every single day, closer and closer. No longer are we in the thousands of subs remaining to reach 100k. We're only around, 970 subscribers left. So if you haven't subscribed, it would mean so much. We're so close. You don't have to, of course, but I would truly appreciate it. That way we can reach that juicy 100,000 milestone together. And last, I do want to mention that you should support us on MRL's free supporter program. You get free codes from supporting, so it's honestly a win-win. We have 11,450 actuate. Let me refresh. How many supporters do we have now? We gained about, oh wow, over 100. So this is why I'm ranked number 1. I make sure everyone gets a code. We have 3 codes. After supporting, it takes a few hours to get your code. Just wait. I have to do it manually one by one. It is not easy. You will get your codes. These are the 3 codes right here. So just be patient, support, don't think, and you will get all those juicy rewards. And lastly, a big shout out to Truck Gun from the first comment on our last video. Here is your shout out and enjoy that juicy Discord roll. Now, hopping back into our tier list, I want to mention our previous one. This one was from last month. Some adjustments I do want to make, but overall, when it comes to the SRs, basically the same. We haven't had any changes, so if I go back here, my opinions for these have not changed, by the way. This is just being moved. As you can see, my mouse is on them. I'm moving them up, don't worry. But when it comes to the SRs, honestly, not many adjustments there. So let me just go back and fill that list, and I'll explain why I'm making some of these choices. First off, when it comes to our rares, they all go into the rare tier. They are honestly not bad weapons, trust me. If you have a rare to A10, they are no slouch, you can use them. But honestly, that's only in specific use case scenarios. They are good specifically for the battlefield time. If you're missing an SR, if you're missing an SSR, it is a fantastic filler weapon because you have to remember, when you have an A10 rare, that means the rare advanced up all the way to A10, 10 advancements. It provides phenomenal bonuses to your HP, defense, and attack, meaning you get substantial damage bonuses, especially for game modes where your bonuses are restricted, that being the battlefield time. So don't sleep on these weapons, they can prove useful. But outside that game mode, honestly, not too useful. We just have so many weapons we can fill those out with. So that's why they find their own tier, because they're not bad, they're not good, they just have varying use case scenarios. Now, next up for our weapons, again, same thing. My SR tier list doesn't really change too much, so Rock Golem Hammer is honestly not good. Dragon Scale Broadsword, not a good weapon. Black Falcon, same thing. And I could be tripping out, but I'm pretty sure they changed the name because of me. Before it was called Black, and then I'm gonna wait to say it, Hawk. Yes, that's right, that's what this weapon was called before, unless I'm tripping out. But I'm pretty sure that was the name. So I'm glad they changed it because now I can pronounce this, Black Falcon. Before, if you said it, honestly, it sounded pretty bad, very virus-filled, but anyways, just want to give you some history. Oryx Broadsword, same thing, not a weapon you really use. Though Baruka's Dagger, although not very good, it is Wind Elemental, so we have so many better options, but still, it's a strong weapon. That crit bonus on the advancements is very good, so that's why it finds itself in our B tier. The Trident, same thing, pretty good weapon, though we don't use it too much. Night Killer as well, solid weapons, just not used. We have the Burning Grimoire as well. It's a solid fire weapon, but you have to remember, we have the Orphavris, which is our best SR fire weapon, so honestly, the book just doesn't pull through the way we want it, of course. Though Cascad's Venom Fang is a very good water weapon. You can honestly use it for any water elemental weakness. It's very strong. Trust me, give it a try. The one weapon that is just not strong, since we're talking about water, is the Scatty. What a horrible weapon. It's just not used. It needs like 10 more buffs. Still, such an underwhelming weapon. One day, maybe, it might be good, but right now, you should not summon for it. It's just such a letdown. When Vulcan came out, everyone was hyped for it, but honestly, what a bad weapon it turned out to be. Such a waste of our summons. Next up, Vulcan's Rage. Same thing, not useful. No use for it in a game right now. Needs a buff. And then we have our two meme weapons, that being Maryland Surfboard and also the juicy Grilled Skewer. I do think the Skewer has more use than these two weapons here. You can use it for the Guild Boss battle, but these two weapons, I mean, beyond winning the championship if you watched it, for Soul Loving Arise, just doesn't have much of a use. So I do think this weapon has a spot on our list, but if you're a new player, do not buy this from the shop. Same with the Marlin Surfboard, don't buy it. 300 of those coins is not worth it right now. So many better options. I mean, sure, it can be used for armory, but if you're wasting those platinum currencies, it is a very bad move to make. Do not do it. But I do think right now the Merlin Surfboard has no use. I mean, it's good for doing gold gates, but honestly, there's so many other weapons you can use. You shouldn't get this weapon just for that cause. So at the bottom first, here it goes. But Juicy Grilled Skewer, my favorite word, my favorite weapon. It's just one juicy weapon you should use for the Guild Boss if you have no other options. Now, speaking of Guild Boss, this weapon right here can be used in substitute of Grimoire if you don't have your Grimoire to A1, getting that erosion bonus. So this is a very good weapon. Finding a spot at our S tier because it's very OP if you ask me. Next up we have, let's do Lustrous Dragon Sword. It's a very strong weapon, very strong light weapon. We don't have too many, so you might find yourselves using this weapon instead of Huntsman, instead of the new weapon, the Truth Demon Knight Spear. A very solid weapon, but when it comes to the SR version, we can move it up all the way to, honestly, I would say right in between these two. I mean, these are interchangeable. There is a glitch for the weapon, so if you use it, it's actually very strong. Probably stronger than these other weapons here, but I'll make the list very simple. It should go right around here. I mean, interchangeable. Doesn't matter too much. Use the one with the most advancements. That would give you the most damage. So continuing on, what else do we have here for SRs? Okay, we have the Longbow, a very capable SR weapon, and also we have the Orb of Avarice. If we go back to my previous list, they were in our SS tier, and still, I do think that's true. So going back here, I'm going to move them up all the way to that juicy spot in our SS tier. These two weapons are no joke. I do think the Avarice cuts out ahead. It's a very powerful weapon, and I think, yeah, I did it last time too, just because it makes sense to me. I use the Avarice much more than the Longbow. It's just easier to use, better DPS in my opinion, but anyways, moving on. They're both good weapons. You're never going to use them in place of the other, because you're always using them when you have the elemental weakness. So their position doesn't matter too much, but in our SS tier, that is their true home. And speaking of home, we have two other weapons that do find themselves in our SS tier, that being the Scythe and the Huntsman. Again, same thing from my previous list. I do think the Huntsman is just a bit better than the Scythe because the Scythe is honestly not easy to get off. The moment the enemies tickle you, the moment they step on your feet, the animation gets cancelled, meaning no damage. If we got super armor, if we got a shield, if we got some sort of invincibility during the skill animation, it would be maybe even a Z tier weapon. Pretty good DPS, but right now in our SS tier it goes. It's not bad, but it's not great enough. But certainly not as bad as Scatty or Vulcan's Rage. You can definitely use it, that's for sure. Now, I'm sure you're wondering what I think our best weapon in the game is, and let me tell you right now, that spot is taken by the Demonic Plumflower Sword. This weapon is seriously the #1 Z tier weapon in my opinion, but don't forget Moonshadow, it's seriously good as well. If you want to learn one thing from this video, it's that Plumflower Sword and the Moonshadow can literally carry you in every single game mode. You have to remember, please put this in your mind, skills deal so much damage now. Heroics are pretty easy to get. The devs keep pumping out all these free rewards. Your skills basically deal as much damage as some weapon skills, so that's why you have to use Moonshadow, Plum Sword, try it out. When you have them advanced up, your skills start to nuke the target. It is insane. Magnifying slashes is number 1 for a reason. Once amplified from Moonshadow and Plum, it is insane. Do not sleep on these 2 weapons. I know there's that new weapon, the Demon King's Daggers, but it's not our best weapon in the game. I'm sorry. It does definitely deserve a spot in our Z tier. The DPS is insane, but it's not as good as Plum, not as good as Moonshadow. Sure, it deals damage, but not in every single game mode. Moonshadow, Plum are versatile. You can use them everywhere, and you honestly don't need this weapon. Although it's good, you have so many substitutes. You have my now favorite weapon, the Demon King's Longsword, but okay, I'll be honest, the Juicy Kebab is my favorite, but going on. And we have the West Wind too, for wind elemental typing, so you don't need this weapon. I do think the Demon King's Longsword, based on using it, is honestly one of our strongest weapons. It's no joke. That buff it got at its A5 is insane, but remember what I just said, at its A5, meaning you have to have the weapon to A5, otherwise it's not going to be as impactful in terms of damage. But looking at our other weapons, we have the Grimoire. This obviously deserves a top spot. I would say this, it'll be a tough call. It's more useful than the Demon King's Daggers, but it doesn't really deal too much damage. Honestly, if we're talking about utility, and we're focused on that specifically, I would say Grimoire cuts out ahead, but I know if I do that, everyone would get pretty mad, so I'll do this. It probably makes more sense, just because the Grimoire at A1 is so good. Oh, I'm having a tough time. This is a tough choice, but I'll go with my gut. I'll take damage over buffs, because we have these 2 buffers right here. So Grimoire, I'm sorry, you're in place number 4, but a weapon I'm not sorry about is League's Fragment. This is a strong weapon, don't get me wrong, but I do think it's still not as good as Grimoire. It's strong, but it isn't a must summon in my opinion. Just like your longsword, you need it to A5 to really dish out the damage, whereas Grimoire A1 already becomes so useful. Again, my opinion. These tier lists are based on the creator's opinion alone. If you disagree, of course, leave in the comments, let me know what you think. But going on, we have the Truth Demon Knight Spear. The problem is we still don't have it to A5, so I can't give an opinion just yet, specifically as to how good its potential is, but from what I've seen at A3 alone, it's very strong, so I wouldn't summon Huntsman in place of it. This weapon is free from the guild shop over time, that is of course, so it does edge out Huntsman just in that regard. It's much better to use a free weapon and not summon for one that's not as good when you have so many other weapons to choose from. Now last up we have Phoenix Soul. This is a good weapon, don't get me wrong, it's still a bit clunky. I'm conflicted where to put it. Not ahead of Zeke's, no way. Honestly, it's not even as fun to use as a Demon King's Longsword. I know people get mad if I do this because the Longsword does need A5, but Phoenix Soul is our best fire weapon, and you only have to have it to A3 to get a good effect off from the advancement, so honestly, I'm pretty happy with this list. I do think this is respectable. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? If you disagree, tell me why. I have to know. This is a learning experience for all of us, but honestly speaking, I think this is a very solid tier list. I wouldn't change anything too much. Yeah, I'm actually very happy. So again, let me know in the comments what you think. If you enjoyed this video, do drop a like. Make sure to subscribe as well. And of course, do support us for free codes. I have to send it out manually to everyone, so just support, don't think. The link is down below. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. This is your Code King Zaf, signing out.